Emily, are you set to go?
Welcome, everybody, to the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Emily Gilmer, and excited to bring you another episode of Workability. I was founded by Neil Weber and Tip Trojan. That we do here every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Central. And if anybody is interested in I guess, it's on, if this or any of the other shows, it's on, please let us know. Um, and yes, it's over to Kurt to what are we talking about today, Kurt?
Well, today, in workability fashion, again, folks, this is about, Neil's advocacy and inspiration and motivation and all the things for people with disabilities to take a closer look at ability of themselves and to look at the prospects of getting employed, applying for jobs, interviewing for jobs, taking on that work because each and every person has tremendous work ability. And there's a concern that Neil has that people with disabilities, by and large, count themselves out of employment and work a little more abruptly than what they need. So we have this whole show to discuss all the elements that make it very plausible that people with disabilities can expect to have a job and to navigate the issues around their Medicaid and Medicare benefits, the Medicare programs, and their disability income, Social Security disability, and all the things. And so today, what we're going to do is we're going to look outside of the workplace as factors for our success in a better future for all of our job candidates with disabilities. So what we're doing is we're looking at, fun and faith and fun to help the finances of a person through acquiring a job, adding work into their lives and getting more from a paycheck. So on the faith journey side, we're going to look at churches, to look at our priests and our pastors and our chaplains and everybody in the faith community that shapes those experiences, all of the office managers and whoever is shaping how things work in the community of a congregation to really make it more and more favorable that people on their faith journey that are a congregant with a disability can have a stronger experience and have a stronger connection to their fellow congregates, and that more people will join a faith community because people in the community find that faith community more attractive because of seeing how it's favorable to their announce the disability that they identify with. They like how the church community interacts with that it's functionally appropriate and favorable and attractive. And then on the fun side, when we look at picnics and potlucks and doing hikes and walks and fundraisers and all these things out in the community, that we look at how we get people with disabilities more involved there and do those parts of life better, because what happens is it derives a better predisposition in the workplace to work together, better together. Just like in this episode right here, Neil likes co-hosting because he likes doing it better together. He likes to do it together better. He finds that more to his liking. Right, Neil?
Yes. I believe in creating, co-creating. What I believe in is all the things Kurt mentioned involve community. And when I was an active member, I'm not currently an active member, but when I was an active member at the Grand Avenue Club, we created a lot of things. And what we created was community. And what we created was we all worked together to create a common goal. And that goal was that, none of us could do it without the other. And so that was each of us was very necessary. And what we found was we found that we went by a group of 36 standards, and those 36 standards were voted on originally by the community out of New York, Fountain House. But eventually, all clubhouses around the world had to adopt these standards. And what my point is that these standards guide the clubhouse. And so, what I believe in is that are the principles that guide our clubhouse, and we co-create community through these standards. So what we do is based on our beliefs, and so just like Kurt talked about the belief that of a church and its guiding principles, so is principles of a secular organization like the Grand Avenue Club, which is not religious, it is secular. It is it has the guiding force of the principles. And so what I believe is it is important to have morals, and morals guide our behavior. And today in this world where, I went into a Gillis custard stand, and they had a sign up saying, please treat our employees with respect. And I called a customer service agency, and they said that please treat our employees with respect, or we may have to end the call. So in today's world, there's a lot of rudeness and a lot of just a lot of rudeness, and that rudeness, unfortunately, driven by the culture, is driving our beliefs. And so what I think is needed is a culture of respect. And I think George H.W. Bush talked a lot about that in his presidency. And so that is what is needed, is a kinder, gentler nation. And that's what George H.W. Bush talked about. So I think it is necessary to look to the principles that guided our founding fathers, and the principles that guide our religious communities, and the principles that guide our secular institutions, like, for example, the Grand Avenue Club, or any organization that has morals that back it. So I really believe in morality as a source of both inspiration and of guidance. And I think that we need to pass that on to the next generation, because I don't think every generation has to pass it on to the next generation. That is part of our role as Christians, as Catholics, and we need to be inculcating those beliefs with the members, because unfortunately, a lot of times, due to the competing influences of mass media, whether it be TV or radio or the movies, there is a great competition for a person's attention. And that attention is, a lot of times the culture is not in cooperation with the principles I was talking about, principles of faith, principles of community, principles of love, faith, hope, and love. And I really believe that needs to be our guiding principles. But unfortunately, due to the competition from a secular world, which is more interested in necessarily making money, well, there's nothing wrong with making money. The question is, are you, prioritizing greed? There was a famous movie called Wall Street, and it's still quoted today. And that quote is, greed is good. And there was a Japanese fellow who came to the United States, and he was saying that very line, and he had learned it from Wall Street. So I think, we really have to really watch what we watch, and be more careful, mindful about what we take into our minds, because that is what guides us.
It absolutely is. And, so we're hearing stuff about faith communities, and a little bit about nonprofit work like Grand Avenue Club, and, to look at, entities like this, our churches and our nonprofit services, require funds to, to fully deliver the mission of the nonprofit, or to, do the entire work of what the church, is set to do and sought out for. by people in need and such like this, and just, the significant part that churches play in our lives. And so again, it's, relying on donations, contributions, a financial, um, you know, to give a donation and to tithe, from the faith community, to do tithing. So this is something that, community and lawmakers and everybody can really take into consideration, that when a social worker, provides what is going to be available to a person with a disability on Social Security disability income, with, Medicare programs and such like that, you know, it's really a bare bones, limited budget that they're provided. So really the pathway to really get things to be more, respectful, and to get, people empowered to just really get their life on track to really where it's meant to be, is through the job market, through being employment, to get the paycheck, and then to be able to put to practice tithing, just like every other congregate at Mass. Everybody that is, going to a potluck or going to a party, you know, we have to look at that through our marginalized populations, including, by and large, people with disabilities, and how there's systemic oppression. There's all that at play. But again, for an individual, and Neil's goal here with this show is more to speak to the individual with a disability, and to have this show provide insights and accolades and encouragement to say, apply for the job, go through the job seeking process, land the job, report to the job. And, that's where the disability community has a lot of accolades, that, people that are the employers that make the decision, the hiring decisions, and then look at someone with a disability, there's a lot to offer. Like Neil, you talked about, customer service. So there's a lot to offer in terms of, in the disability community. I guess I'll just say personally, I believe that I find, the grander hearts and the greatest emotional stability, actually. And, to say, treat our customer service reps with respect. I found in the last decade that I really, I really formed the opinion that, by and large, if I'm with the friends that I know have a disability versus the friends, or just people out in the public, people with disabilities, people that don't identify with a disability, and look at where we are in that level of respect, I give a higher rating to people that identify with a disability in that area. So we're talking about soft skills. So it may not be chalked up to soft skills, but it may be chalked up into that people with disabilities just want to basically belong, to basically overcome stigmas, and to earn the respect, and to do a basic thing of earning a paycheck. So that's where, when we look at how we participate in other parts of our life, whether we're having fun, practicing our faith, our capacity to do that part of our life easily translates into our future with the job. Right, Neil? That's what we're building up to here, right? For this show.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the the person with a disability has more soft skills and has more ability to empathize and to humanize with the general public, because they have been treated in many cases wrongly because of their disability. They've been, either ostracized, or they've been in some way, even in some way discriminated against. And I think they know what it's like to do that, to be, a victim of that. So they are often more sensitive to the person who is in the general public, because they know, how to empathize with people and how to be a force for good. And I think that's what is very true. And I think I am currently in a clerk role in a kitchen, but I think my eventual goal is to be a customer service agent where I can work with the general public, and I think that would be very helpful. So I think it is very general. It's very good for people to find their passion and to work with people in their passion. And my passion was once was a full commission salesperson. I did that very well. Unfortunately, my disability prevented me from continuing in that. So now I'm currently in a part-time role, receiving disability as well. So I think it's very important to pursue your passion and to pursue what gives you energy and strength, and therefore gives you meaning. And I think meaning is very important. And I think part of meaning comes from the money that that the work provides, but part of it is the intangible elements that have nothing to do with money. And I think that can be very money, and that can be whether your disability allows you to live up to your faith, or whether your disability allows you to give a kind word to someone. There is a clerk at a grocery store. On, I won't say the name, but well, I think it's not important. It's Sendik's grocery store, and she has a disability. She appears to, anyways, and she has a lot of kindness and a lot of love for people. And I think that's very. She's a very special person, and is because she's able to use her humanity to reach out and to touch people's lives. She will never be she may never be a full-time worker because of her handicap, but she'll always be a gift to the community because of her ability to give to the world. Just like Helen Keller, who I often quote, she was deaf, blind, and mute, but she went on to become a public speaker of such renown that she wrote and published books, and was able to write books and speak about them. And I think that ability was, despite her obvious handicap, was a gift to the world, and she's still talked about today. Probably, I don't know exactly, but 50 years after her death. I believe she had something to do with the United Nations, and I think she had a gift in that role. So that was really a blessing. So I think it's very important to use your gifts and to not take no for an answer, and not limit yourself. Obviously, we all have limitations, but don't impose limitations on yourself because you believe society, because you have a disability, society believes you can't. Believe you can, and do the best you can. So I think that's important.
Yeah, and if someone identifies with a disability, qualifies for disability services, receiving Social Security disability, benefiting from Medicare programs and all the stuff, and maybe they're unemployed, through all of this, one possibility contributing to the barrier of even being motivated to do job seeking is to look ahead to the obvious routine. The routine is you know to go and communicate to someone with a authority, or that makes the hiring decision, how it makes sense that you be the one to fill that job capacity. And then once you're hired, to go through and manage your time differently now, because now you're setting aside time to go to your job, unless you are set up to do remote work from your dwelling place. But say you are going to a job site, now there's logistics, there's the transportation. Are you someone who has your own car and can drive yourself and do all that? If not, then you're talking about the bus system or other modes of transportation, doing all of that, getting in, settling in, being able to organize yourself, so it's habit formation. And that could be part of the intimidation for why some people with disabilities don't look for that job, because there's that whole unknown territory about how that's going to work, and to be defeated, by that prospect, even to be chosen as the one to fill the job. But that's where how we do bringing people into our churches and bringing people to parks and, theaters and all the fun things we do. See, now those habits that get people to go to pray together with people in the community and all the things that help someone with a disability and those that don't have a disability do the fun things together. Now you're reducing down the adjustment of habits, the habit formation to go and perform duties at a job place. It's not as big of an undertaking because we have success in all these other parts of life. We're just now going to a workplace and just carrying out different activities, as prescribed by our employer. So this is the recipe of success that I'm proposing in today's show. Neil, are you liking the way I'm,
Yes,
adding
I like
to
it
it?
very
And
much. What you're talking about is integration. I think integration is very important in today's world. It's not enough to be simply good at one area of life. You got to be good at all areas. And what I like to talk about that is spiritually integrated, physically integrated, emotionally integrated, uh, um, uh, relationally integrated, and financially integrated by five uh, qualities of success. And I think that's very important to have those qualities and to work on them on a regular basis and to try to integrate that into your life.
yeah, when you bring up integration, I really know when you speak to integration that is the ideal conversation to have, and the same thing that's happened at the same time in the last 20 years is a lot of the word choice has gone to inclusion. Because when you use the term inclusion, it just sounds the linguistics, just the connotation of the word, it just sounds more appealing. Whereas with integration, I think 30 plus years ago, in some circles and in some exchanges, it got attached to affirmative action. So the business world, the employment world, starts to, you know, you start to see their forehead kind of crease up, and they may go a little cross-eyed or whatever, the integration, or and they may not know it, but they're attaching some of that affirmative action stuff, which people who are trying to run a business are concerned that it's kind of that unfunded mandate, or that government stepping in and interfering with the operation of businesses and services, where I don't look at it that way. I'm looking at it that affirmative action definitely in past decades and even today would have a little realm of, it's about by law some things that have to happen. But I like the term affirmative action to say, or assertive action, and what we're doing is with affirmative action, it's affirming that we as a community, we as a society really see people with disabilities, and some of it was used for racial equity. That's really where some of the um, some of the differing opinions on how to do all these employment aspects actually came from, racial equity. But in terms of inclusion for people with disabilities, there's a lot that can be unpacked there and a lot that can be put to practice from an employer selecting and opting in to put these practices into place for the benefit and the superior um, result. Like right now, Neil, you were touching on customer service and so forth. A big part of the driving force about why management says, be polite to our employees is they're having issues of too much turnover, too much of their investing in an employee, and that employee is leaving. And, a big factor is when the employee doesn't enjoy working there, because it's like the public is bringing, this, forcefulness to them, and they feel very uncomfortable, and they're feeling how, they're in this position where that person is very dissatisfied, and it's just not fun being yelled at, and
Yeah.
things like this. So that's like with my name, Kurt, and customer service. I have fun and I say, I provide Curtimer service. I leave I leave the cuss into you. So I don't even use the beginning of the word customer service because it starts with cuss, you know. But that's
Yeah.
part of, I was talking about that this past week. I was talking to people like, if you're in a customer service center or just with, out in the marketplace, if you're doing customer service and somebody's cussing at you, it's pretty universal management approach that every employee is empowered to instruct that patron to say, if you're gonna keep using vulgarities, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. That kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. We
So
see that.
Neil, what? Oh,
Well,
go ahead.
We see that our job, Outpost Astro Foods, where people are not rude, not cussing, but they are often demanding. They will go into our store and they will make comments about our our quality of either goods or services, and they will demand um, recompense for that. They will demand some kind of uh, gift card or something, and so that is something that we see. We have a gentleman called Bucket Man, and he wears a hat, and that's why it's a certain kind of hat, and it makes it look like a bucket, and that's why we call it Bucket Man. But he's very demanding, he's very difficult, and we have other, we have a name for all these different customers because they're very demanding and they're very good at getting what they want. And so we have to teach them with good kid gloves because otherwise they will be rude to us, and that is very unfortunate.
Yeah, and some of it is with the younger workforce and so forth. I know, like, at some of the establishments I've been, or like even, if we end up going through a drive-through and such like that, it's just amazing to me, how, there is a significant workforce out there that is very apt to make a mistake or very apt to miss something. And then you're sitting there as the customer saying, my order was not filled accurately, and then management is having to, create some sort of concession, for the mistake. And, so there's definitely something to figure out here. How are we going to maintain our marketplaces and our shopping areas and, all the places where we interact and, kind of help bring this together that the customer and the employee can work together for the success, the customer to help the success of the employee and the employee to help the success of the customer getting what they want and to, yeah, not have the friction or the volatility or the negative emotion, brought forward through it. And it just help everybody be calm, cool, collected, and, to feel like we can figure it out. Stuff happens, people make mistakes, and let's just figure this out together. So
Right.
Neil,
I agree.
with today's show and topic, what's next? Are we at our conclusion, or you got some more things you want to unpack today?
I would like to end it here. I think we've covered the topic very thoroughly and very well, and I think we ended on a good note.
Yeah, I agree. So there you go, folks. Another discussion on how we hope that Workability, this show brought to you by Neil Weber. And we like to be joined by Tim Terosian. Last week, Tim Terosian, took care of the show with us, so on and so forth. And, so we have fun working together. And I said in the show we did with Tim Terosian earlier at 4 o'clock, Blue Collar Crypto Show, I shared how my wife and I are ambassadors with Project iHeart, and we say, with that leadership approach, we always talk about teamwork makes the dream work. And so that's what I hope for this show, Workability. We hope that what we talk about here helps make your dream work, because that's where Neil believes in you. He believes that you can go get your fully gainful employment and go out there and enjoy breadwinning. So there you go. Emily, over to you. Any final words, Emily?
I just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in, and hope to see you next week at the same time, same place. Let us know if we can help you with anything or being on the show or anything else. So hope to see everybody next week, and hope everybody has a safe and productive week and to stay happy.